Alright, there's an old saying, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. An old saying from a Greek philosopher, pretty fitting for what we're covering today, which is kind of the newer Odyssey, or to be more frank, the drama around it. Now this is a very, very old debate going on for, well, basically since they started making movies. And that is, how much of a story can you actually get away with changing? And it's a very good debate to be having. Unfortunately, it's kind of being hijacked by the dumbest people on the internet. Just for an example, look at Asmongold's rant about the Odyssey. It's actually beyond parody, it's so stupid.
It's crazy that you can say that about the Odyssey when everything in the Odyssey is the exact opposite of that. They're literally sailing across the fucking ocean to steal a bitch back. They raid a city, kill everybody in the fucking city, and then they go back home, and then obviously Odysseus is an asshole, so Poseidon's like, well, you're not gonna go back home because you're a fucking asshole. They sail away, and then you've got the hose trying to fucking get you to crash your ship.
By hose, he's referring to the sirens.
No.
Just wanted to, give y'all the hood translation.
One hoe that's there that keeps trying
Straight
to
from the trailer park.
brainwash Odysseus, doesn't know what the fuck's going on, and then he gets back to his own house, there's a bunch of fucking foreigners there.
I was waiting for him like, then he got back to his own house and he found out his wife Penelope was running the OnlyFans and was in the middle of a gangbang with all the suitors, and he said, yo, bun that. Then he killed her on some red pill shit.
Hospitality is like the last value in the Odyssey.
Okay, so I can't tell you guys how wrong that is. Even if you go read the original works, hospitality is incredibly important throughout the Odyssey. They mention it. Basically, the whole idea is you don't know if it's a god in disguise, so you're better off just being kind to folks. And it's also a matter of survival. Like I said last time, you live on a bunch of islands. There's no refrigerators. There's no Amazon. There's no fast food joints. Okay, you guys put yourselves in the actual place where you're at sea for dozens of days, and you need to be able to survive. You have to stop by places, and people are basically hospitable. They offer you what you need to make sure you're able to go on your voyage.
Right.
That was a matter of survival. But that was also in the original retelling. So when I hear this guy yap and he's got all this energy for this film and it's so clear he's not familiar with the material, that's what I know. It's like very much just identity politics at the forefront of this. People are told they have to hate certain aspects, and so they'll justify it and they'll claim that they care deeply. But you don't know the original story.
Yeah, I don't ever think Asmongold read the Odyssey. Like, he's literally just saying things that he knows is going to anger his audience. Like the people with Penelope, those guys weren't foreigners. Those were suitors coming for her hand because Odysseus had been missing for 2 decades. He's just saying foreigners to make his audience angry. Or more specifically, to make them angry at the thing he wants them to be angry about. And there is a big difference. And just to exemplify that difference, I'm going to take a look at 2 critics that also cover the Odyssey, which is History Buffs and The Critical Drinker. Now, History Buffs is a guy that reviews movies from a more historical lens. That's generally his whole thing. He reviews historical movies, and then tells you how accurate they are from the actual history. Whereas Critical Drinker, again, just kind of focuses on the whole anti-woke grift. And while you might not think these 2 things are separate in this case, trust me they are. Just take a look at how they both tackled this issue of race swapping in the movies.
Now, as for the elephant in the room, the controversial casting, this is probably the most modern audience Hollywood movie you will ever see. Helen of Troy only scratches the surface. Ancient Greeks are played by black actors, Asian actors, Latino actors, Indian actors. It's all over the place. I genuinely couldn't see any casting philosophy beyond hiring as many famous faces as possible. Now, I know what some people are going to say. It's Greek mythology, it's a fairy tale, it's not our world. Well, the thing is though, multiple times throughout the movie, the characters talk about an upcoming apocalypse and the Sea Peoples. The Sea Peoples were real raiders who helped bring about the collapse of many Bronze Age civilizations at around 1200 BC. So the movie wants to root itself in a recognizable moment of history, while at the same time asking you not to think too hard about the historical setting when it comes to the casting. Okay, next controversial question. Is the language as bad as you think? It's honestly fine, it didn't bother me once I got used to it. Hearing American accents in films set in the ancient world isn't as uncommon as you might think. Plenty of movies from the 1950s and 60s had Americans playing Romans, Greeks, and Egyptians, so to me, this just felt like a continuation of that.
Now, you don't need me to tell you that there's been a frustrating rise in the race swapping of established characters and in some cases, actual historical figures in recent years, and of course, it only ever goes in one direction. There's this weird assumption that every other culture, race, and ethnic group in the world are entitled to their own unique stories, history, and identity, and it all has to be carefully fenced off, protected, and respected. Whereas anything created by white Europeans is treated like some generic all-you-can-eat buffet that everyone's allowed to stick their hands into.
Yeah, okay, you can see the much bigger and wider claims from Critical Drinker. And I can tell you right now, they're false. You even heard some examples from History Buffs in his, but yeah, a lot of other films did this. This isn't a new thing that's happening, and yes, it did happen to other people that weren't white. Just for some more examples, in the original Godzilla, when it was edited over to America, they actually added in a whole new character just because they didn't think that anybody would watch a movie with 0 white actors in it. John Wayne playing Genghis Khan, for Christ's sake. And again, you heard History Buff saying himself, but the Ten Commandments was also a movie where Egyptians and Jews were again played by white Christians. This is not a new thing either, or a thing from back way when, as you could also look at films like 300 or The Last Samurai. Critical Drinker is literally just telling you this so that you can be angry at the things he's angry about, not because it's a real thing. History Buffs is actually a lot more accurate about them just shoving in famous people into a movie just because they want actors into it. That's actually a very common thing. For a more modern example, you can actually look at the new Avatar movie for that. Again, they replaced most of the original cast for diversity reasons, as they said, but in doing so they also fired the only other Asian voice actor, Dante Basco, who was the original voice of Zuko, and replaced him with Steven Yeun, who is actually the current voice of Invincible, one of the biggest shows out right now. So clearly, diversity wasn't the motivating factor there, you just wanted big names in your movie because you think that's what sells tickets. That has always been Hollywood's modus operandi. Big names sell seats. It has never been anything else. And while you can definitely criticize that, and you probably should, it's definitely not what Critical Drinker is selling it as. And a much bigger point about their reviews is that's pretty much all Critical Drinker talks about, is the acting, casting, and almost nothing about the actual history of the movie.
We all know that Elliot Page recently transitioned from female to male, and that's fine by me. I hope he's living his best life now and that he's happy and fulfilled. But it does create a bit of a problem when it comes to casting, because Elliot Page is 5'1" and weighs about 90 pounds soaking wet. What the fuck is he supposed to fight against? I mean, his own armor probably weighs more than he does.
Whereas, once you get past that part in History Buff's movie, he actually talks a lot more about the historical accuracy of the costumes, the ships, the locations, etc.
Everyone looks like a Viking in this movie. They're all dressed in black and brown leather tunics. Whenever there is any color, it's faded, dark, and grimy. They even wear black armor. The worst offender is definitely Agamemnon. He looks like Batman with a predator spine running down his back in the baking hot Mediterranean sun. And it's not just the costumes, there's Viking influence all over this movie. The witch Circe drinks out of those horn shot glasses you could buy from the Grimfrost website. Odysseus even sails around in a Viking longship, specifically this one, which completely breaks the illusion that we're meant to be in ancient Greece. Now, I know why Christopher Nolan picked it. He wanted a real seaworthy ship they could actually sail. Fair enough. But there are reconstructed Greek galleys too. He could have used one of those instead. Another thing I didn't like was the design of the Trojan horse. What do you think when I tell you that it doesn't have wheels? Seriously, every depiction of the Trojan horse we've ever seen puts it on wheels. Even the ancient Greeks imagined it that way. The famous Mykonos vase from the 7th century BC shows the Trojan horse with wheels. I mean, it makes sense, right? How else are the Trojans supposed to get it back to the city? Well, in Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, they drag it across the plain on logs with ropes, while the Greeks hiding inside are being thrown from side to side. It's ridiculous.
And again, it's not just for this movie either, but he's also been consistent in criticizing the casting in other movies, such as 300. Unlike Drinker, when it's only a certain group being recast, acting as though they tarnish his heritage despite being Scottish, and thus descended from Celtic heritage and not Greco-Roman. His outrage is just unearned. He knows nothing about the material, he lost nothing, and his reason for the problem is not a real one. He's just blaming other people just because he knows that's a good way to make people angry. It's not black or brown millennials or Gen Z forcing their way into movies that's the problem, but corporate celebrity culture that incentivizes what's popular now. A culture that's been around for decades. Something History Buff actually knows because he has reviewed historical movies across the decades and generally loves history for history's sake. He has even acknowledged movies that aren't historically accurate as still being good movies, and that's the real debate to be had here with adaptations or historical movies. Does the changes mess with the story, and how much can be changed until it actually starts to hurt it? There is a lot of good and honest debate to be had here, and the answer may change given the subject. Like, for example, stories like Romeo and Juliet or The Seven Samurai, two movies I actually compared to their most different adaptations in the 1990s Romeo and Juliet and The Magnificent Seven. These two don't matter where, who, or what period they're in, they still just work because their stories weren't about feudal Japan or Venetians. You could put them in space and make everyone lizard people, and it would still probably work pretty well. That, however, would not work for characters like Othello or Black Panther, since their race is integral to said character. If Othello really isn't just the only black guy around, then yeah, it just wouldn't be the same. Historical figures are even more so, but again, those still seem to have their fans. Like 300, which I like. It's an over-the-top adaptation based on a comic. But the thing is, I like it despite knowing it's not based on any real history, besides there being 300 Spartans at the Battle of Thermopylae. Point being, if you're going to be mad about adaptations, make sure you are familiar with the source material and the reasons why decisions are being made. Otherwise, you will fall for the rage bait and wind up with a drunk as your master. That's all for today. Until next time, everybody.